I sipped my black coffee gently as I looked out the busy window. The theater district was close by, and the annual Fringe Festival brought life to my favorite part of town. I looked down at my wristwatch. 6:23 p.m. Still no sign of my date. To my right, I saw a woman hanging up a flyer for one of the Fringe Festival shows. The headline show was called Peter Panda, a Peter Pan parody. Looked like fun. Have you seen that show? I asked a beautiful curvy brunette with green eyes that shook my entire brain.
I haven't seen this one in particular, but it's put on by Defiance Comedy, and everything they do is incredible.
She told me, focusing on getting the flyer perfectly straight. Oh, yeah? What else have they done?
One that's like an office drama, but set in the North Pole at Christmas. And there was this one about a camp where kids kept disappearing, but it's a musical comedy. But my favorite is a Star Trek parody they did a few years ago. I'm still waiting for the sequel.
Wait, you're not a Trekkie, are you?
I don't like to define myself by any one particular fandom, but I grew up watching the original series with my granddad, and I do enjoy several of the newer series as well, especially the animated ones.
She told me, stepping back to admire her work. So you aren't a purist,
Now, what fun would that be?
she said while meeting my eyes for the first time, with a slight smirk. I was momentarily at a loss for words. She took a step closer, glanced at my left hand, and after finding no wedding ring, she asked,
Mind if I join you for a minute? I've been running around town putting these flyers up all day.
Please do. I'm Winston. I offered her my right hand. She shook it firmly and took the open seat next to me.
I'm Rosie. You waiting for someone?
Apparently not. 25 minutes late and no text. The worst part is that I actually dressed up for this.
This is you dressed up?
I wish I hadn't worn suspenders with a belt, and now I just look indecisive. Like, I thought about wearing my fedora, but my brother threw it out under the guise of doing me a favor.
He was.
But, like, what does he know, right? Because he just has, like, a wife and two kids. I smiled at her. She smiled back. Interesting. So, are you waiting for someone?
Nah, I just prowl coffee shops for guys that need help dressing themselves.
That is a good indication of dating status, yes.
So, what do you do?
Now, don't tell anyone, but I'm kind of an American hero.
Really? How so?
I am in the Army National Guard and I go to Ivy Tech Community College. So, you're welcome.
Oh my goodness, you're like Batman.
Right, you are, Rosie. I keep Indiana safe from terrorism 1 week in a month and 2 weeks in the summer.
And what about the other 28 days in the month?
See, that's where it works out. Our schedule is the same as ISIS. We synced up weekends a long time ago, and so it doesn't like take up all of our time. She laughed. I laughed too. This felt effortless.
I get it. They're probably also enrolled in a community college, taking classes in a cave somewhere.
Intro to bomb making.
Effective hostage taking.
Counterinsurgency 101.
Intro to countertops.
Would ISIS have some sort of basic kitchen remodeling course?
Well, you can't make a sandwich on a rock. That would be uncivilized.
She gently squeezed my left hand. The waitress dropped off Rosie's coffee. She blew on it for a minute and carefully added 2 creams as if she had all of the time in the world.
So tell me, what do you study at school?
Oh, it's just liberal arts. Like, I want to get a federal gig after the school's over, and they don't care what your degree's in as long as you can read.
Not the worst plan.
It's the only plan I've had since I was 19. What about you? What do you do when you're not prowling for poorly dressed Army veterans?
I teach poorly dressed 12-year-olds how to do math.
Emotionally, I have a lot in common with a 12-year-old, and I'm not great at math, so I think this will work out great. She laughed, and I couldn't wait to hear that sound again. So when does the show start? I asked, looking for any excuse to keep talking to her.
In about an hour.
She took another sip of her coffee. As she pulled it from her lips, I saw a twinkle in her eye and a sense of electric chemistry that traveled all the way down to my fingertips.
You know, I do have a spare ticket.
I felt my phone vibrate. I took a look. I saw who it was. I cannot believe I am turning you down, but I have to go check on my dad. He he doesn't really drive anymore, and I try to make sure he has groceries. Can I get your number? After the grocery store, I just kept moving. I loaded the food, water, and Tommy into the ambulance and drove like hell. Sobbing gently, I focused on the road as best I could. The center of my chest was tense. No sharp shooting pain, just anxiety. I was going to get us to the cabin no matter what. A few hours later, I saw a cabin off in the distance. Solar panels on every inch of rooftop. A lake off in the distance. Trees that seemed to stretch into forever. I didn't know what denomination Tommy was from, but I buried him next to his grandfather's cabin. The puppets didn't eat his body. I made sure of it. I wasn't sure how many days ago that was. On this day, I was fully dressed in my body armor, face mask, and Kevlar helmet. I looked at the double doors that led out to the hellscape the world had become and just contemplated staying in my rack all day and sobbing. But I needed to justify my life. So I grabbed my rifle and gently turned the left handle as the barrel pointed out the door. Nothing. I turned the other door handle and gently pushed it out, scanning 180 degrees with my rifle. Still no one. Holding my breath, I moved my selector switch from safe to semi as I waited for the puppets. No whip snap. I gave it 5 minutes and no movement outside except for the squirrels. I reached down at the wire by my feet and pulled upward. The stairs unfolded, and I walked down, scanning my view for targets. Still nothing. I relaxed my shoulders just a hair and took a deep breath, walking from the ambulance to the front door of the cabin, pressing the combo to turn off the alarm. The sign above my head said, "The dog is nice. Beware of mines." The solar panels were still operating, and parts of the house still had power. I walked inside and turned to the kitchen. The refrigerator and pantry had been picked clean. I went downstairs slowly, my rifle pointed at the ready, waiting for the whip snap. Nothing. I walked into the back room, seeing shelves on both walls. Dozens of gallons of water, maybe hundreds. Enough to last months. I didn't know how long I'd stay, but I was having trouble finding somewhere else to be. I took 5 gallons back upstairs and to the kitchen sink, where I could have eyes on the ambulance. I stopped at the sink and squirted dish soap into it, filling it with 2 gallons of water. Stripping naked, I hopped into the countertop and sat in the giant kitchen sink, giving myself a bath. My rifle was inches away, and I had eyes on the ambulance. Honestly, I was bathing more at the cabin than I did at Atterbury. After I deemed myself less disgusting, I pulled the stopper and listened to the water drain into the bowl under the sink to be used for cleaning my clothes. Then I repeated this process without soap, giving myself a good rinse. All the comforts of home. You got Tommy killed. I could feel that sentence at my fingertips, no matter how I tried to ignore it. You found your father. Why are you alive? I shook my head clear, pulling the plug on the drain. Maybe if you weren't such a coward, you could have saved them. As I washed my clothes in the dirty bath water, I could feel the sides of my head get tense. As I finished with my boxers, I poured what was left of the 5 gallons back into the coffee pot and hit the green start button. You don't deserve to live. Minutes later, the pot was made. I recognized the smell. Colombian dark roast. Took me back to my childhood. I poured myself a cup and sat at the kitchen table. And then I heard a faint chuckle. Winston, you're getting so skinny, I bet you could finally pass height and weight. Smiling as the tension left my head, I turned to the kitchen table. There my imaginary dad sat, his cigarette burning gently in his right hand as it rested upon the surface. You quit smoking, Winston? Dad asked me, smiling. Yeah, right before COVID, I told him, gently sipping my canteen cup of coffee. Do you miss it? He asked me. I took a slight sip of my coffee. I don't miss smoking. I miss being 22 in San Antonio. I miss smoking a cigarette with a cup of coffee and eating breakfast in the field. I miss the feeling of potential I had before my first deployment. That much I miss. But now, in my late 30s, it wouldn't be the same. I'm glad you've updated the program since then, my imaginary dad said. Some people in uniform get stuck at age 25. They find a solution that works and don't bother to change it, even though life is just a series of temporary solutions. Dad, I could sure go for a temporary solution right now, I told him, the memory of tobacco making my skin feel tight. You feeling okay, Winston? No, I said. Not since I'd say Atterbury, but it goes further back. I'm just scared. The world ended months ago, and all I've been doing is running from the screams and the ghosts of everyone I failed. I could hear my voice start to break. Stress will do that to you. My hands were shaking, so I put the coffee cup down. My imaginary dad took a deep breath. I closed my eyes, and we were in the trailer park of my youth. He was sitting next to me on a couch, his arm around my shoulder. It's time to let me go, son. I felt my eyes water up with tears. I don't. Dad, I need you. He shook his head and told me, no, son. Not anymore. You remember that night you got lost downrange? He smiled. Winston, what direction did you go? I went forward, Dad. I went forward. Exactly, Dad said, squeezing me into a hug. You took better care of me than I ever did you. You didn't fail me or Tommy. There was no winning, just surviving as long as possible, as long as you can. I know you want to join me, Winston, but don't. Just know how much I'll always love you. You've done such an incredible job, and I couldn't be prouder of you. My little boy, my special little guy. I love you, son. In the cabin, I fell to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. The mental space around me began to dissolve. I held on to my imaginary dad as long as I could, finding comfort in his arms and begging him to stay. I was a little boy again. As the bright Technicolor trailer turned into the bleak dystopia of the cabin, I saw the face of my imaginary dad fade away, a smile that never left his eyes as he winked at me from nothingness. And then he was gone. I felt a hand on my shoulder and a voice I hadn't heard since the world ended.
Winston?
It was Rosie. I stood up and backed away 3 paces. Her eyes locked with mine.
Winston?
She wondered, taking 3 steps back as well.
Are you real?
I sure hope so.
Is Tommy here?
He's buried out back. I shot him in the head when a squid got into his throat. I'm sorry. He said you were in Ohio when everyone died.
Everyone isn't dead, Winston.
Okay, everyone but us is dead, and I'm sure the squids will find me soon enough, because everyone I know fucking dies, and then yes, you're right, it's my fault, because why wouldn't it be?
I'm thankful you were there for my cousin. You didn't fail him.
I got him out of fucking Atterbury as the world was falling apart around us. I kept him alive. And we were so hungry. And there was this grocery store. She nodded with understanding. I didn't have to beg for forgiveness. There was no winning, only surviving as long as possible.
They were waiting for you, weren't they?
How did you know?
I ran into the same trap coming out of Cincinnati. There were more people with me back then. They're they're all dead now.
You said everyone wasn't dead. I sat on the floor and put my face in my hands, not entirely sure this was happening. I wasn't entirely sure that it mattered.
How long have you been alone, Winston?
She joined me on the floor. I took a deep breath and regained some composure. I don't. I'm not sure. Weeks? Maybe months? But honestly, I wasn't even sure how long it had been since Atterbury. Rosie took my right hand, squeezing it tight as she held me in her arms.
You're not alone anymore.